Welcome back to K Time Online at 209 Online. Our artist today is Henri Matisse, Henri Matisse. It's one of my favorite artists. I love his use of bright color and lines. It just makes me feel happy. So here we go. Matisse initially trained as a lawyer, but he went on to become one of the most influential artists of the 20th century. He used bright, bold colors and believed art should give comfort, like a good armchair. Henri Matisse's parents, a shopkeeper and a hat maker, had high hopes for him and sent him to Paris to train as a lawyer. But when he was 20, he had appendicitis, and while recovering in bed, he took up painting. It was then that he decided to become an artist. Matisse returned to Paris, this time to study art. At first, he struggled for money, but in 1898, he married Amélie Parier, and she set herself up as a hat maker to support him. She posed as a model for many of his paintings, as well as having 2 sons with him and taking care of his daughter from a previous relationship. In 1905, Matisse exhibited his paintings in Paris. Many critics disliked his style, which used bright, unnatural colors rather than showing things as they really looked. One called him a fauve, French for wild beast, and the name stuck. Despite the controversy, Matisse's work began to sell. The family moved into a large house in a suburb of Paris, and he visited North Africa and the Mediterranean for inspiration. This photo shows Matisse in a studio in 1913. This is Collioure in the south of France, where Matisse spent the summer in 1905. Having grown up in the north, the bright sunshine and vibrant colors of the south were a revelation to him. This is the roofs of Collioure, which he painted and was experimenting with color and light and quick little brushstrokes. In 1917, angry critics burned a copy of one of Matisse's paintings outside the Chicago gallery where it was on show. Not cool, we don't want to burn paintings. Harmony in red. Like many of Matisse's paintings, this shows his love of richly patterned fabrics. His hometown was noted for its weavers, and he grew up admiring the sumptuous bright silks produced there. As well as his paintings and drawings, Matisse produced several sculptures, mostly of human figurines. When I started to paint, I felt transported into a kind of paradise. That's what Matisse said. Matisse used charcoal fixed to a long pole to draw the outlines for his large wall paintings. Harmony in color. After spending more and more time in the south of France, Matisse finally settled in Nice in 1917. There he lived through difficult times. In 1939, he separated from his wife and the Second World War broke out. 2 years later, he had 2 major operations that left him mostly confined to a wheelchair or to his bed. Still, he found peace and harmony in his work, painting calm interiors, sunny views through windows, goldfish, and beautiful women. This is Woman with a Purple Coat, which is one of our paintings that we've looked at. The model for this and many of his other paintings was Matisse's assistant, Lydia Delaskorskaya. Painting with scissors. By his mid-70s, Matisse was too ill to paint, but this didn't stop his creativity. He developed a new technique which he called painting with scissors. This involved cutting painted paper into shapes and making lively compositions with them. Like this right here. Icarus. This is one of 20 color plates based on paper cutouts that Matisse made for his book, Jazz. And this is a picture of Matisse in his bed working on paper cutouts in 1949. Matisse's last major project was to create wall paintings and stained glass windows based on his paper cutouts for a hillside chapel in the town of Vence where he lived, near Nice. He was persuaded to take on the job by a nun who had been a model for him in her youth. Matisse saw it as a culmination of his career, but was too weak to attend the opening ceremony in 1951. 3 years later, he died of a heart attack. Alrighty, so we have one more story about Henri Matisse that involves stained glass. And this, if you guys can see this, these shapes, they remind you of one of our artist projects that we did. The sheaf, maybe. In the blue morning. What time is it? Henri Matisse must have fallen asleep at last. Across the room, facing his bed, two pale ladders of lilac gray light show that the day is dawning behind the closed shutters. A motorbike putters up the long, steep hill from Nice. Then it's quiet again. The light gets stronger. The air is warmer already. Matisse watches the lilac gray turn to glowing yellow-white. Light spreads across the ceiling like a tide sweeping in across the sand. He wants to spring out of bed and throw open the shutters. Spring? Maybe not. He remembers that he is old. Too many new days have come and gone. Today, he has to take decisions about the new chapel he is designing. It stands on the edge of a town in Vence, of the hills not far away. Paul Boney, who is making the stained glass for the chapel windows, has sent Matisse a box full of small pieces of colored glass. Every shade of yellow and blue and green. Matisse must choose the exact colors so that the windows can be made. But which yellow, which blue, and which green? When it comes to color, Matisse is king. Long ago, before the First World War, Matisse was one of the young French painters known as fauves, or wild beasts. Not because of the way they behaved, but because of their outlandish choice of color. A woman with deep blue hair, a man with bright green nose, whatever next? People imagine that pictures like these were painted by deranged artists with staring eyes and straggly beards. When Matisse turned up in his well-cut suit, neat necktie, and shiny shoes, they had to think again. Other young artists were also painting in astonishing new ways, like Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque. Now, in 1950, they are too old. Or they are old too. Their names appear in history books which explain about Cubism and the Russian Revolution and the Surrealists and the Second World War. Gently does it, slowly, painfully, Matisse sits up in bed. His back hurts, his head aches. He knows what some people say when they compare him to Picasso. Matisse paints beautiful pictures, but we do not live in a beautiful world. Think of all the war and suffering that has happened in our lifetimes. Think of Picasso's Guernica. That's more like the truth. He remembers his visit to Morocco almost 40 years ago. He loved the hot blue sky, the green explosions of palm trees, and the funny way that people relax by watching goldfish swimming around in a bowl. Sometimes they sit and watch for hours. Was it the bright vermilion color of the goldfish they liked, or their quiet flowing movements? Why shouldn't looking at a painting be like that? A painting should make you feel relaxed and refreshed. If you want a basin full of war and suffering, open a newspaper instead. Around him, the bedroom is coming out of the shadows. He can see the vase of flowers on the table and the glass jug from Venice and the Chinese bowl. These objects are old friends. He has painted them many times. An object is like an actor, he thinks. The same actor can act a different part in many plays. He has so much to do. He has made gigantic drawings of the figures that will decorate the new chapel walls. He is designing all the stained glass windows and the clothes the priests will wear. When everything is finished, the chapel will be a place where your thoughts can be peaceful and free, touched by the colored glass or colored light flowing through the windows. Matisse has designed a window with yellow leafy shapes that seem to wave gently like seaweed. He has his own way of making these shapes. He paints a big piece of paper yellow. Then he takes an enormous pair of scissors and, turning the paper in his hands, cuts out the shape. Drawing with scissors, he calls it. It is like carving a sculpture out of pure color. Paul Boney will turn these shapes into stained glass to make the big windows. He lifts the square of blue glass from the bedside table and squints through it. He does the same with the yellow one. A blue bedroom, a yellow bedroom. They look like two completely different rooms. The yellow is too lemony, though. He tries another yellow, but it is too orangey. Maybe this one. Aha! Just right. And the blue? Matisse holds a square of deep blue glass up to the light. A beautiful blue. He could look at it for hours and never get tired of it. He has forgotten his aching back and his sore head. He feels young again. A smudge of blue light dances on the tip of his nose. Alrighty, guys. I will see you next time. Have a good day.